One of the largest air battles in modern aviation took place between the air forces of India and Pakistan. CNN reports about this. About 125 fighter jets took part in the combat clash, which fought at a distance of more than 160 kilometers. At the same time, the plane of either side did not go beyond the airspace of its country. According to CNN, Pakistanis shot down 5 Indian planes during the battle. At the same time, the planes of the Indian Air Force made several sorties a day to hit targets. India and Pakistan have had tense relations since 1947 over the Kashmir region. Both countries consider it their territory. In the second half of the 20th century, there were 3 major wars and a number of armed conflicts between India and Pakistan. The majority of the population of Kashmir are Muslims, but the region is divided into Indian and Pakistani parts. Recently, an attack on tourists took place in the Jammu and Kashmir region, killing 26 people. The Kashmir Resistance Group claimed responsibility for the attack, calling the victims agents. India and Pakistan have announced a mutual cessation of visas and deportation of certain categories of citizens from their territories. In the evening of May the 6th, India launched missile strikes on Pakistan. It is reported that the Indian Armed Forces have launched Operation SINDOOR. Later, the Pakistani authorities reported that 26 civilians were killed, 46 were injured, and Islamabad also reported that 5 Indian planes were shot down. At the same time, India claims that 10 civilians were killed and 48 were injured as a result of Pakistan's actions. In addition, the Pakistani Foreign Ministry summoned the Indian Chargé d'Affaires and expressed its protest over the hostilities. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of India reacted to Pakistan's actions. They said that the missile strikes were carried out in order to stop the planned terrorist attacks. The Minister of Defense of Pakistan stated that Islamabad will not escalate the conflict if India ceases its military operation. At the same time, it became known that Pakistan, against the background of escalating relations with India, tested a high-precision missile of the ground-to-ground class with a range of 120 kilometers. In turn, India put its air forces on combat alert. World leaders have called on India and Pakistan to stop the bloodshed and sit down at the negotiating table.
It has been released footage of Indian Rafale fighter jet being shot down by Pakistani army. This footage confirms reports of an Indian fighter jet being shot down after releasing flares. The footage shows the jet crashing, followed by scenes of the crash site and civilian casualties. Recall, India launched military strikes on targets in Pakistan, both countries said, and Pakistan claimed it had shot down 5 Indian Air Force jets. Pakistani military sources later said they shot down 5 Indian Air Force jets and 1 drone in self-defense, claiming 3 Rafale jets, sophisticated multi-role fighters made in France, were among those downed, as well as a MiG-29 and an Su-30 fighter. A local resident and government official told CNN that an unidentified fighter aircraft had crashed on a school building in Indian-administered Kashmir. Photos published by AFP news agency showed aircraft wreckage lying in a field next to a red brick building. But it was not immediately clear from the pictures of the wreckage who the aircraft belonged to. Indian jets have previously bombed Pakistani territory following militant attacks on its soil, but Wednesday's operation is the deepest India has struck inside its neighbor since the Indo-Pakistan War of 1971, the biggest of several wars between the two countries. The situation is now obviously serious and fluid, said Fahd Humayun, an assistant professor of political science at Tufts University. Retaliation to India's actions will likely now be inevitable. Along the line of control, which divides the disputed Jammu and Kashmir region into two territories, the rival armies continued cross-border fire. The escalation between the nuclear-armed neighbors comes in the wake of an April 22 attack in Pahalgam, Indian-administered Kashmir, in which 26 people were killed. India blamed Pakistan for the attack, claiming there were cross-border links. Pakistan denied that it had anything to do with the killings.
ਇਹ ਮੂਰਲਾ ਜਗਾੜ ਜਾਣੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਇਹ ਭੈਣ ਦੀ
ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਛੱਡਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਜਗਾੜ ਗੋਲ ਵਾਲਾ
ਭੈਣ ਦਾ
The Israeli military bombed the airport in Yemen's rebel-held capital Tuesday, claiming to have disabled the airfield in an attack that left commercial aircraft burning on the tarmac as its fighter jets struck power plants and other targets. According to Associated Press, the rare daytime attack on Sana'a, held by Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthi rebels since 2014, came as part of a second day of Israeli airstrikes in response to a Houthi ballistic missile striking the grounds of Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv. The Houthis described the Israeli attacks as killing at least 7 people and wounding 74 others over 2 days. But the future of American attacks on the Houthis, who have pledged to continue to target Israel, was thrown into question after U.S. President Donald Trump said America would stop striking the Houthis. Trump described the rebels as having capitulated and agreed to stop targeting shipping in the Red Sea, though the rebels did not specifically acknowledge such a pledge. Trump is due to visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates next week.
Yemen's Houthi rebels are assessing after these devastating Israeli airstrikes hit Sana'a International Airport in Yemen's rebel-held capital, and they're also trying to determine where they are in this new reality, with the Americans and the Omanis saying that the Houthis agreed to a ceasefire with the Americans. Now, first, the airport, the devastation is pretty intense there after the Israeli strikes. The terminal there has been destroyed. 3 aircraft belonging to Yemenia Airways, the Yemen state carrier, have been destroyed, and a 4th only escaped because it was already on its way to Amman, Jordan, with commercial passengers. Now, the Houthis say that some $500 million of damage has been done at the airport and that it is shut down for the time being. Meanwhile, the Houthis are still trying to assess what to do after U.S. President Donald Trump surprisingly announced this ceasefire between the Americans and the Houthis, saying that the rebels had capitulated after strikes that had been going on since March 15th. Now, the Houthis still haven't really acknowledged agreeing to the ceasefire, but one thing that's interesting is that they continue their rhetoric against Israel. The Houthis have been launching these attacks at sea over the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip and the fact that aid has been blocked from going into Gaza. So with the Americans pulling back apparently in these strikes, it sets up Trump to possibly come into the Middle East for this trip to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates next week without any sort of threat of a Houthi attack. But it leaves the Israelis, who have just struck the Houthis, possibly out in the cold, and the Houthis are still threatening them. So there could be more attacks that could draw in those countries, the United States, and perhaps the entire region if they continue.